Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all today? Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit more about the Picasso Awards. We're very, very excited to bring these awards to Canada. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Um, in the meantime, if you have any questions, and we're going to get through a whole bunch, and I've got a number of questions that we have been asked quite a bit in the last few weeks regarding nominations. But if you have any additional questions or any ones you just want to kind of get into the chat, please do type them into the chat and or stick up your hand, and I will only be happy to answer them. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Nicholas Cheung. I am the Vice President of Privacy Training here at the Privacy Pro. We are a boutique privacy consulting firm, and I head up the training division, which goes through IPP certifications like CIPM and CIPPC. And we also hold our own PIA workshop, which incidentally we're actually holding on April 11th. But we're not here to talk about privacy training. We are here to talk about the Picasso Awards and the nomination process. My colleague Lauren unfortunately had to step away, but I hopefully will be able to answer all the questions that you might have so that you are armed with all the information that you need to put together the best nomination that you can for the upcoming deadline of April 7th. So the Picasso Awards, let me just give you a little bit of background about the Picasso Awards. So the Picasso Awards was established by Picasso, which is a nonprofit based in the UK. And they wanted to recognize all the great things that were happening in privacy and data security. And so they launched it in UK, which is now spread to all of Europe. And they have had tremendous success with recognizing all the great work that we do in this particular sector. And so they decided that they want to expand internationally, and they want to expand to North America. And when they thought about North America, there was one country that they wanted to start off with first, and it was Canada. And so the Privacy Pro is just thrilled to be co-founding the Picasso Canada Awards with Picasso from the UK. And so Picasso Canada, which is a nonprofit that we've created, is a nonprofit that promotes and celebrates individuals and organizations who champion privacy and security in Canada. In other words, all of you and the organizations that you work for. So we will be hosting an awards gala to celebrate all the people in privacy and data security on the evening of June 11th in Toronto, which will be held just after the Canadian Symposium. In fact, the venue that we have the gala at is at the Toronto Region Board of Trade. And it's only a 7-minute walk from wherever the Weston Harbor Castle, which is where the Canadian Symposium is being held. So just minutes away. And so we tried to make it to coordinate the schedule with the Canadian Symposium so that we can take advantage of all the people coming to the symposium and have them enjoy this, what promises to be a terrific evening. We are so delighted to be able to have Philippe Dufresne, the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, as our keynote speaker. And in fact, we have been very much honored that he has been a supporter right from the start. For some of you who have listened to our launch event back in January, he actually helped us launch the Picasso Awards way back in January. And I was speaking with his office earlier this week about his upcoming participation. You might have seen some of the tweets or the LinkedIn posts from their office, just reinforcing how much they believe and support the awards. The nominations are free and easy to submit, and we're going to kind of go through that whole process of why it is quite a simple process, and the awards are independently judged. Now, let me kind of give you also a little bit of background as to why we're bringing these awards to Canada. Probably two things. First thing is the only time, well, not the only time, but most of the time when you hear about privacy or data security, we're usually hearing it up in the negative context, I suppose. When a data breach happens, when someone's hacking, when someone's data is being held for ransomware. Okay? That's when we're actually hearing about these type of stories, which are negative in nature. And that's the only time you really get a lot of media attention. And so we have really wanted to bring these awards to Canada and to highlight the success stories. We want to turn the script. And we want to highlight and use this as one of hopefully many forms to highlight the terrific work that we all do in this sector. And so that's our main objective for bringing these awards to Canada. The other thing too is we have so many terrific people that do terrific work on a daily basis in privacy and data security. And I think and some of us do that work, and it's hard to get recognition, right? It's hard to get a lot of appreciation for all the hard work that we do to protect personal information, to protect data. And so we believe that this is a terrific opportunity to turn the spotlight on all of our collective successes and all the terrific things that we do here in Canada. So what are all the award categories? So we've got 15 that are on offer. And so what I've done is I've actually had this segmented and kind of resorted it into kind of 4 umbrellas or four different categories, I suppose. We've got the first one, which is sector specific. So we have one for public sector, non-for-profit, and for health, privacy, leadership. And so if you're in any one of those sectors, that's probably one of the ones that you're looking at in terms of a nomination. There are 7 awards for individual achievement in privacy and data security. We have one for a rising star for any of you who have been in privacy for, let's say, 10 years. And we know that there are a lot of nominations coming in for that one. Outstanding privacy lawyer, privacy engineer, privacy leader in academia. So if you are an academic, if you're producing thought leadership, we want you to submit a nomination for that. The Privacy Award for Achievement, Outstanding Privacy Officer, and Indigenous Leadership Award. So if you fit any one of these categories, please really do think about submitting a nomination for any one of these 7 in the individual award category. We also have ones for teams. And so a lot of people will, I've talked to many people who have been considering nominations in the last little while. It's like, you know what, Nick, it's really not just about one person. It's really about the team. And so that's why we have these 3 award categories for data partnership, Privacy Team of the Year, and the Best Privacy Program Award. So understanding that often it's a collective effort, and so therefore we've got 3 for award for team success. And then lastly, we have done some great things here in Canada, and certainly one of the things that we have produced in recent memory is and showed great leadership is privacy by design as an example. And so therefore, we want to make sure that we continue to recognize and also incent further innovation by recognizing organizations that are producing impactful products or services, and also just terrific innovation in this space. So those are the 15 awards. There's a lot. And so we've really tried to be inclusive and make sure that we include every single sector so that, it's not just one particular area. It's not just that it's an individual or team. There are many categories here that hopefully many of you can find one that that you or your team or your organization can find one that fits with something that you will want to nominate. So what does it take to nominate? Okay, so we have 6 very easy steps, and we'll go through that. And I'll give a little bit more detail about each one, the ones that require a little bit further information. So first of all, to make a nomination, you go to PICCASOAwardsPortal.ca. And when you get there, the first thing you can do is you can actually click on a PDF, which will give you an overview of all the questions or all the information that's required for a nomination. Once you've taken a look at that, then you create an account, okay, which will just ask for some very basic information. And step 2, decide as to whether you want to make an anonymous nomination or not. You can choose to whether have your name or your organization associated with that nomination. It doesn't really affect the actual judging process, but some may prefer to be anonymous, and so therefore we have provided the ability to submit the nomination anonymously if you wish. So in number 3, you enter your basic information, so your name, your email address, and the company of who you are nominating for. And number 4 is this is where some of the extra information that we require, this is where the real nomination information is required. So we want you to describe the nominee. So this is your opportunity to give our judges some insight as to who the nominee is. So we're not really kind of getting into the work you're trying to recognize. This is more about describing who the nominee is, whether it's an individual or as a team or organization. So if you're entering either as an individual or a team, tell us who you are, what you do, and the type of organization that you work for. If you're entering as on behalf of an organization, let us know about the work that your organization does and give some insight into the team. And so in this section of the nomination, only 500, maximum of 500 words is what we need in this particular section. And step 5, we are asking for an executive summary for you to summarize the achievements and innovation that was accomplished. So this is a summary of your nomination, setting out briefly your achievements or innovations in support of your nomination. And so this executive summary, not more than 200 words, is the part that will be published via a hard copy program on there. It could also be published as part of the shortlisted. So this is the area, this is the summary. You should expect that if you are shortlisted, that it will be published on our website. Okay, so this is the public-facing portion of your nomination. Okay, so once the shortlist comes out at the end of April, we are going to publish the names, and we may publish the executive summary as well. It will definitely be published as when we get to the actual awards gala, it will be published in the hard copy program that will be available at the awards gala. Okay, so 200 words, and this is the section that will be published at a later time should you be shortlisted. And step 6, this is the main part of your nomination form. Okay, this is your chance to tell us about why you, your team, or your organization should win this award. And so there's a couple of criteria for what you should be describing in this section. Okay, so it has to be work that's done in Canada within the last 12 to 18 months. So I often get the question, what should I include in this nomination? Okay, so some of the areas, some of the questions that you might want to answer in your nomination here would be, what did you do that was new and innovative? What problem did you solve and how did you solve it? Why was this important to the organization, to the sector that you serve, or to the community that you serve? What was it about the work that made a difference? What were the results achieved and the impact on the organization, sector, or community? How does the organization's approach in the nomination area support value creation for the organization and its stakeholders? How have things changed as a result of your work in this area? And then finally, focus on providing evidence to support your answers. So in this section, you have up to 750 words to describe your nomination. So when you really think about it, right? So we talked at first about the describe the nominee, that's 500 words. The executive summary is 200 words. And then this section is a maximum 750 words. So as nominations go, I know it's, I'm not saying it's not an insignificant task, but we really tried to create it so that you can submit nominations and it's not meant to be an onerous task. Especially if you're going to describe your, in the earlier step, in step 4, describing your organization or yourself, we're hoping obviously that shouldn't be too difficult. And so really the trying to craft your nomination here in number 6 is probably likely is going to take the most time. Okay. And so right after you, in the next section, right after nomination, is where you would also attach some evidence as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some commonly asked, frequently asked questions that I get asked a lot. And so we're going to try to cover these. If there are other questions beyond this or you need clarification, please do enter it into the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them. So the first one is, I don't have anyone to nominate. Is it okay to submit a nomination myself? Absolutely. And I think this is the number one question that we get. And, you know, if you have listened to some of our webinars earlier this month, we've been talking a lot about self-nomination and not being hesitant about advocating for yourselves. And so is it okay to submit a nomination for yourself? Please, 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 please do. And so a few weeks ago, we had a webinar to commemorate International Women's Week. And Lauren did a panel discussion with Pam Snively, who is the Chief Trust and Data Officer for TELUS. And we also had Vivian Arts, who is the co-founder of the PICCASO Awards. And I really found that their stories were heartfelt and really kind of drove the point home about why self-nomination is so important and self-advocating. And so I'm just going to quickly share those stories with you. I would say that, so for Pam's situation, she was saying how that her and a classmate back in grade 7 were up for an award or a particular position. And so the teacher asked the class to close your eyes and put up your hand for the person that you felt should either get the position or the award that was being competed for. And so Pam had said that with her background and upbringing, that she was taught to kind of not advocate for yourself, right? And so that wasn't the thing to do. And so when the time came to vote, she voted for the other candidate. And so after the vote had happened, the teacher had asked to talk to Pam and said to Pam, well, just for the future, you're always going to want, hopefully, people to advocate for you. And how do you expect people to advocate for you if you don't advocate for yourself? And just to let you know, you lost by 1 vote. So I found that to be very powerful. And that's a story that has resonated and continues to resonate to Pam even to this very day. And the fact that, if it's so much easier to advocate for another team, but how important is it to advocate for ourselves, and not to be bashful? And I also kind of get that, we're Canadian, we tend to be more modest. But here's another story from Vivian that I want to share. What are some of the benefits of self-nominating, self-advocating? So Vivian is someone who is very generous with their time and loves to be able to promote the others and how they excel. And so there was a competition, there was an awards nomination period, and one of her colleagues said, Vivian, why don't you nominate yourself for one of these awards? And Vivian's like, well, why would I do that? And it's like, well, you know what? You do fit, you take a look at the criteria. And so Vivian did take a look. It's like, okay, yes, I do. Yes, I do meet the criteria. But it wasn't in her mindset to nominate. She's usually nominating everybody else. But she, in this case, decided to nominate herself. She ended up winning. And no sooner than had she gotten off the stage, her boss came up to her, congratulated her, and promoted her on the spot. Once they got back to work after the weekend, her boss had highlighted her success, and Vivian really does believe that winning that award has set her career trajectory on a different path because of winning that award. And just imagine if she had not won that award. So to make a long answer to that particular question, I'm hoping that these two terrific stories, and if you haven't watched that half-hour webinar, it is available on the PICCASO Canada LinkedIn website. Please do. It is for 30 minutes. It's probably one of the best webinars that I've attended. One last note before I move off this question. I'm also delighted to share with you that as our MC for the awards gala on June 11th, we are delighted to have Lisa Bragg, who is a best-selling author and the author of Bragging Rights. So she certainly has the right last name. And here she talks about nominating yourself. And we also had a webinar with her a couple of weeks ago. And please do, that's also available from our PICCASO Canada website, PICCASO Canada LinkedIn site. And again, she talks about and just reinforces this whole notion of why we need to and should and not be afraid to self-nominate ourselves. The second question, I'm not sure if what we did merits a nomination. Any advice? Well, another very common question, and we're going to go through in a second some examples of what has won similar awards from the European edition of the awards. So we've got those as some examples. But I think because the awards hasn't been held here in Canada, we don't have these kind of benchmarks. Like we can't say who won last year, right, in Canada. And so what is deserving of an award? So we don't have those kind of benchmarks. And so I can understand that there's a little bit more hesitation about, is whatever I'm doing worthy enough of a nomination? And I think that what I've tried to share with a lot of people is, if you know, and I think a lot of us do know, that you are doing good work in privacy and data security, I think you should give strong consideration for submitting it as a nomination. And you don't know who else you're going to go up against. And I think that we tend to think, in the absence of these benchmarks, that we have to have some really massive project or achievement, or do we have something that rises to the level of privacy by design before we not make a nomination. And I absolutely want to say that I don't believe that to be the case. There is, it could be simple as, how have you simplified your data subject access request process so that you are able to better respond and respond quicker and with a much more comprehensive, or you've made the DSAR form more user-friendly. I was actually talking with Lauren, and she was kind of commenting on this, where in Ontario, we used to have to apply for your Ontario driver, or renew your Ontario driver's license and your health card in separate. You would have to do it separately. It always expired on our birthday, and so you would have to apply for it separately. And so, but what has happened is that the government has said, well, since aren't there some synergies that we can happen, because a lot of that information is similar. And so they have simplified the process that when you have both of them renewing at the same time, they have put it through a process where you can renew both at the same time, provided you've met some criteria, right? And so I think that is certainly a terrific example of an innovation or an improvement, where there is less information that has to be communicated, or where you've been able to leverage information that you already have to collect. So it's better for privacy and better for all of us. Okay, so we'll get through some of these examples in a second as well. How are the nominations judged? They're judged independently, and we have an all-star cast, or all-star panel of judges who are judging our awards. And so we have Chantal Bernier, who's now with Dentons, who is the former interim Privacy Commissioner of Canada. We have Elizabeth Denham, who is the former Information Commissioner for the UK, and the former Information and Privacy Commissioner for BC. We have Dr. Khaled El Imam, who is involved with medical research AI with the University of Ottawa. And we also have Colette Stewart from Interact. So we have terrific judges, and we actually have more that will be added on in the coming days and weeks. And so when, one of the questions we get related to this is this pay to play? Absolutely not. Okay. And I'm hoping, and we're hoping that the impeccable credentials and credibility of our judging panel will help reassure you that we very much are putting these nominations through a robust and independent judging process. Do I need to provide evidence, and what is recommended? It's optional. However, all things being equal, providing evidence in support of your nomination would be a great idea. So if you've got screenshots or a video of what your innovation or some of the work that's been done, whatever evidence you can provide to substantiate your nomination can only add to your nomination. Someone asked about whether endorsements is a great idea, and I go, well, it certainly can be. So, for example, if you had developed, again, if I kind of go to, you developed a new system, and part of that system was to make it more user-friendly for someone to input their data into, you could get a user, whether it's an organization or an individual, to provide some comments in support of your nomination as to, well, before the system, before we had in the old version of the system, it collected 20 pieces of personal information. It was slow, but now the new system, it only collects what I believe is really mandatory. It only collects 5. All the other fields are optional. I now get responses in this quick. So those type of innovations, those type of things is, if you get a user to provide that, a letter or something like, or an email that you can include as evidence, that would only add to your nomination. Can we submit nominations for more than one award category? Absolutely. Okay, so there are 15 and you are not restricted to one. And so please do consider if you fit more than one category, you certainly can submit more than one. And do we have some examples of previous award winners? Yes, we do, and I'll share those in a second. But first of all, I just want to kind of go through some questions that we have received. So one question I have is, the evidence that we would be including would likely be work product done in an organization that isn't publicly available. How is confidentiality handled? That's a great question. So the information you have to, it would be shared with some of the awards organizers, as well as the applicable judges who are judging that particular category. But having said that, I don't think that, we're not going to share, it's not our intention to share confidential information outside of these awards. As far as we're concerned, that the only information that we will share publicly will be what's in your executive summary. However, having said that, if whatever you're submitting has confidential information, I would caution about whether that would be appropriate for your nomination. And so, obviously we would not, ask you to provide anything with personal information, but if there's some really confidential work product, I would ask that you get approval and try to either blur some of the information so that management or legal counsel would be comfortable about this being shared with another organization. Again, we will not be sharing it with anyone outside of it, but in light of that, still, I would say that you should take appropriate steps to make sure that the information that you feel is confidential stays confidential, and that we're not going to go to any. We won't be sharing it beyond those, but we are sharing it with some of ourselves as well as part of the judging panel. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions at this point before I start getting into some examples? Okay. Well, let's keep going, and feel free to continue putting any questions into the chat. Okay, so these are some highlights from the award winners from Europe in 2023. Okay, so this is just kind of give you a flavor as to who's won awards before. So for the Rising Star Award, this person was the chair and member of a number of various data protection committees and groups. They were completing their master's in data protection law, and they had done a number of public talks and webinars on data protection, privacy, and technology. And remember, for the Rising Star category, it's for those who have been in privacy and data security for less than 10 years. For the Outstanding Privacy Lawyer, this person provided experience in providing advice to organizations in a variety of sectors on cutting-edge issues in data, including the growing impact of AI. For the Outstanding Privacy Engineer, this person was a co-founder of an AI company that was changing how global organizations can responsibly manage video content while maintaining the public trust. For the Privacy Leader, Academia, and Thought Leadership category, this person had received 3 research grants from the European Commission to study the European citizens' need for privacy. They authored a number of academic and other articles on privacy, and they were a member of the IAPP Research Council. For the most impactful privacy product and service, this organization had a privacy management SaaS solution for small and medium-sized enterprises, schools, and smaller charities, and they used non-legal language, and they really helped, and this system helped to automate complex and time-consuming tasks. For the Privacy Award for Achievement, that year, Europe had 2 winners. The first one had a 40-year career assisting clients globally in navigating the complexities of technology, data privacy, and information security law. The other winner was a data protection commissioner. So if you are listening from a data commissioner, or sorry, a privacy commissioner's office, even privacy commissioners and those working in the privacy commissioner's office can also win awards too. It's not just about everybody else. So in this case, the data protection commissioner for this jurisdiction was recognized because they really helped change the culture around how people perceive data protection. For Privacy Team of the Year, for this team, they worked to ensure all their colleagues understood what privacy meant to them and to do the right thing by baking privacy into the heart of their digital transformation. The Outstanding Privacy Officer, this one I really like. And so I took these actual quotes from the executive summary. And so the first one here is they said that, for this particular person, their most valuable skill is her ability to break down data protection responsibilities into practical, common sense, and dare we say it, fun and engaging conversations to reach the best solution for individuals and the business. And I love this next point. And so I guess the organization, when they were looking at, any issues related to privacy or data security, when they were looking at considering new processes and projects that involve personal information, they used what would Jillian say as their barometer. And so I really love that, the fact that how they use that person's, they try to put themselves in the shoes of that person. What would they say as their moral compass? And so I really, really love that particular quote. And so for privacy innovation, this was a regulator. So another regulator won an award where this regulator launched a fast feedback service for organizations looking to innovate using PI, who have specific questions about how data protection law applies to their project. And so the service that they created was aimed to provide targeted advice to these organizations, to their questions, within 10 to 15 business days. So they could help organizations tackle these real world risks that arise from processing personal data in novel ways. So these are all examples. So these are all very quick examples, and we'll be posting a more complete version of the executive summaries on our website early next week. But if you want a copy, and actually if you want a copy, please do email me, and I can give it to you before the weekend. Otherwise, we'll be posting that very early next week. So this is my final slide, and I'm happy to take questions after this. The deadline is a week Sunday, so April the 7th. So please do nominate your team, organization, maybe one of your clients, or yourself for one or more award categories by April 7th. We hope you plan to attend the award gala event on June 11th here in Toronto. And if your organization would like to consider, there are a number of limited sponsorship opportunities still available. So please do reach out to me, and I've listed our website as well. Okay, so those are my slides. And before I, address any more questions, I do want to kind of comment on one thing that I do sometimes struggle to teach when I'm teaching privacy courses. In one of the courses that I teach, we talk about metrics, and we talk about how can the privacy program or the work that the privacy team do to better, essentially, how can you provide a return on investment? How can you articulate that return on investment of what the privacy team does in terms of the business? And so that's never an easy question to answer because a lot of what we do is not necessarily revenue generating. It's a lot of cases more about trying to protect from penalties from non-compliance. It's a lot about preserving revenue that we have because we don't want to lose customers and their revenue should a data breach occur. But here is something where, for the first time in Canada, with these awards, you're going to be able, if you're a winner, you're going to have something that's obviously something you can demonstrate, something you could show, and that you can highlight the fact that, our organization has been recognized for doing some great work. And so therefore, now, now with these awards, that ROI discussion hopefully becomes a little bit easier. Okay, so one question I've received is, are achievements outside of the last 18-month window relevant? I would say that as we've indicated in the nomination form, we're looking at any achievements and work done with the last 12 to 18 months. Any questions? And please, if you don't want to, you can raise your hand, and happy to hear from you. So you can just turn on your mic, and I will be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
I have a question, actually. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I mean, you gave it like a maximum word count. I'm all about efficiency, like shorter, as long as I'm making my point, giving you metrics, hitting those messages, no penalty for shorter entries, I'm thinking, right? Just making the judges' life a little easier. Okay.
I'm sure, you know what I mean? I think that hopefully this will resonate with you. Not shorter, but I guess obviously succinct
The thing,
and to the
yeah.
point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, you also have to understand, I mean, we are all volunteers, okay,
Yeah.
doing this, including our judges. And so, well, obviously, part of doing this, what we want them, I don't want to say bombarded, but we want them to have really robust and we want them to have obviously a good selection of candidates for each award category. Having said that, we want to make sure that, yeah, make your best case, right? And so you can even kind of think about, well, you know what, if you are applying for a job right now, it's like generally the standard is no more than 2 pages, right? You got to fit it all in 2 pages. And so in keeping with that theme, keep it as succinct as possible, but also understanding that even though evidence is optional, I think you would probably agree that anything that you could provide in some type of additional evidence, whether it's
Oh, yeah,
so that
yeah.
someone could see what you're doing, or if you've created something, or you've got letters of endorsement, whatever the case is, that can only add to your nomination.
Okay, and then second question, I'm like, cut me off, but everyone else seems quiet, so I'm just gonna take my
Please
opportunity.
do.
Are yes, like include I'm like, and I judge awards for PR, so I'm thinking like with my judge hat on as well. Is there an opportunity, like if we include a link, for example, to something appropriate, is that relevant? Like, would the judges look at that, or like I'm just trying to think through the system. I don't have an example in mind necessarily yet. Like we're still sort of working
Yeah,
through our
so
entries, but
I would say that please do include the link. However, the caveat I would say is that um, from my, from, we haven't gone through the judging criteria, I mean, with the judging panel yet. Having said that, it would not be my expectation that the judges are, just because you have the link, would be to go through your entire website to find whatever. So the link is good. However, if there's maybe just a couple of pages that are really relevant for your nomination, you may want to take a screenshot of that, include that as part of your evidence, so that
okay.
that way it's directed, right? As opposed to here's the link and, well, you know what, it's somewhere on the website. They should be able to find it because I gave them the link.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your questions. Anything else from any other questions that I can answer? Okay, well, if there are any additional questions, I'm going to type my email in the chat. nick@theprivacypro.com. So please don't if you have any questions over the next week as you're preparing your nominations, please feel free to drop me a line. I'm happy to either email or, if necessary, have another quick chat one-on-one to answer your questions. And otherwise, I wish all of you happy writing and a great long weekend. So having said that, again, happy to answer any questions, but otherwise, I hope that has answered a number of the questions that you might have about the super easy nominations process we have for the PICCASO Awards. So on behalf of the advisory board of PICCASO, we wish you happy writing. We wish you good luck. And I look forward to seeing your nominations and hopefully seeing all of you on the short list when it comes out at the end of April.
This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care, and thank you for attending.
Thanks. See you.
Bye, Laura.